Picture this nightmare. You're 78 years old, sitting in a cramped apartment, watching your savings account drain to nothing. You celebrated your early retirement 38 years ago, convinced you'd beaten the system. Now your body's too worn out for employment, your professional network has vanished, and the calculator that promised you Yongju freedom just proved it was lying. Right now, there's a silent emergency unfolding among people chasing financial independence. Countless individuals are laser-focused on hitting one specific savings target, believing it guarantees lifelong security. They submit their resignations, celebrate their escape from the workforce, and assume they're set forever. But here's the uncomfortable reality everyone avoids. The formula promising liberation comes with a legitimate chance of catastrophic failure. And when that happens, you don't just sacrifice comfort, you sacrifice autonomy. The gap between depleting your accounts and building lasting wealth isn't random chance. It hinges on understanding two critical thresholds, saving 25 times your annual expenses versus 33 times. I'm here obsessing over the subtle distinctions that separate those who merely accumulate from those who truly thrive, and more crucially, those who sleep soundly from those who lie awake with financial anxiety. If you're currently sacrificing your present to secure your future, meticulously tracking every dollar with this persistent worry that your projections might be fundamentally flawed, stick around. Today, we're challenging the most revered principle in personal finance. We're examining whether the traditional safe withdrawal approach actually works in our current economic environment, and whether a more conservative strategy is your only path to genuine peace of mind. This conversation goes beyond spreadsheet cells and percentage points. It's about ensuring you never face the humiliation of working retail in your final decades because your calculations failed you.
The 25x approach captivates people because it feels within reach. The concept, grounded in influential retirement research, works like this. Calculate your yearly costs, multiply by 25, and you've found your independence threshold. Someone spending $50,000 annually needs $1.25 million invested. The framework suggests withdrawing 4% each year, adjusting upward with inflation, and your funds should survive 30 decades. But catch that critical caveat I mentioned, 30 years. Retiring at 65 means 30 years carries you to 95, essentially end of life. The mathematics holds up for traditional retirement timelines. But if you're here, conventional retirement probably isn't your goal. You're aiming to exit at 40, maybe even 35. Leaving the workforce at 35 means your money doesn't need to last 30 years. It needs to survive 60 years, possibly longer. This extended time frame is where the traditional approach starts crumbling. Historical analysis shows 95% success rates across 30-year periods. Extend that to 50 or 60 years, and your odds deteriorate significantly. Given the economic turbulence we've experienced recently, inflation surges, market volatility, relying on a model with a 5 to 10% failure rate means gambling with your entire future security.
You might think the solution is simply saving slightly more, but we're not discussing marginal increases. We're talking about the 33x framework. This challenges conventional wisdom by reducing your withdrawal rate from 4% to 3%. Mathematically, dividing 1 by 0.03 gives you 33.3. Meaning you need 33 times your annual spending. Return to our $50,000 per year example. Traditional thinking requires $1.25 million. The conservative approach demands $1.65 million. That's an additional $400,000. For someone saving $40,000 annually, this isn't just more money, it represents roughly 10 additional working years. 10 more years of daily commutes, workplace frustrations, and missing irreplaceable moments with family.
This is the fundamental dilemma facing anyone pursuing early independence. Do you accept the risk of fund depletion, or do you risk sacrificing years of your life working for security you might not actually need? The 25x approach is particularly vulnerable to something called sequence risk, essentially getting financially devastated right as you exit the workforce. Imagine retiring with $1.25 million and immediately facing a 20% market crash. Your portfolio drops to $1 million, but you still need that $50,000 to survive. After your withdrawal, you're down to $950,000. You're eating into your foundation. Even when markets recover, you have less capital working for you to capture that rebound. You've created a deficit that compounds against you. Traditional calculations assume average returns over time, but nobody experiences average. We live through specific, volatile periods. Retiring into a recession with minimal cushion drastically increases your failure probability. The 33x strategy, conversely, is engineered to withstand these shocks. With $1.65 million facing that same 20% crash, you're left with $1.32 million, still above critical survival thresholds. The conservative approach isn't about extravagance, it's about insuring against the timing of market disasters. But here's the fascinating counterpoint that safety-focused advisors ignore. There's a massive psychological toll to oversaving called one more year syndrome. I witness this constantly. Someone reaches their target, technically achieving freedom, but fear takes over. Just one more year to reach 27x, they tell themselves. Then 27x becomes 30x, then 33x. They transform into wealth hoarders, terrified to use what they've accumulated. Yes, 33x is mathematically safer, but the value of additional security diminishes dramatically. If you're 50 and continue working until 55 to reach that higher threshold, you've traded 5 of your most capable, healthiest years for incremental more protection. Money can always be earned. Those specific years between 50 and 55 can never be reclaimed. There's profound irony in dying as the wealthiest person in the cemetery.
The resolution isn't choosing one extreme. Modern independence isn't binary, it exists on a spectrum. Most people mistakenly assume they'll spend identically every year, perfectly adjusted for inflation regardless of external conditions. That's algorithmic thinking, not human behavior. The sophisticated approach uses what I call adaptive boundaries. Target 25x as your escape intolerable work threshold. Upon reaching it, you're technically independent. You leave soul-crushing employment, but instead of complete leisure, you shift gears. You generate modest active income, perhaps covering half your expenses, while your investments continue growing. This bridges the gap from lean independence to comfortable security without requiring you to remain in corporate misery. Compound growth does the heavy lifting while you're already living freely. Here's what most overlook about spending assumptions. The 25x model treats expenses as unchangeable, but reality offers flexibility. When markets crash 20%, are you really taking that $10,000 European vacation? Of course not. You stay local, prepare meals at home, and trim your budget by 10 to 15% temporarily. This adaptability is what saves the traditional approach from failure. If you're willing to adjust during downturns, 25x provides adequate security. If you demand absolute spending consistency regardless of economic conditions, you need 33x. You're essentially paying for the privilege of never budgeting. The conservative number purchases rigidity. The traditional number rewards adaptability. Another critical factor emerging prominently: healthcare costs and longevity. People live longer now, but often with chronic conditions requiring expensive ongoing care. Specialized care and assisted living facilities can devastate even substantial wealth. Conservative advocates argue the extra buffer isn't for current lifestyle, it's for medical care 4 decades from now. And they make a valid point. Retiring with minimum savings means betting on maintaining good health indefinitely. That's inherently risky. The higher threshold lets you self-insure against biological uncertainties. It's the difference between basic state care and quality private facilities. It sounds grim, but financial planning ultimately means preparing for physical decline. Ultimately, this choice reflects your personality type.
Are you naturally optimistic and resourceful or cautious and risk-averse? Optimists find 25x sufficient because they trust their ability to adapt, picking up consulting work, reducing costs, and adjusting course as needed. They believe in their own agency. For anxious personalities, 25x feels like a trap. Portfolio values get checked obsessively, a small market dip ruins their entire week. For these individuals, additional working years to reach 33x aren't wasted, they're purchasing mental tranquility. You're not buying money, you're buying freedom from financial anxiety. Stop blindly pursuing numbers because internet advice told you to. Analyze your actual situation. Examine your spending patterns. How much is truly discretionary? If half your spending could be eliminated instantly, 25x offers strong security. If 90% consists of fixed obligations like housing and insurance, 25x becomes dangerous territory and you should push toward 33x. Remember, the target isn't the number itself, it's the life that number enables. Don't become so consumed by future mathematics that you forget to live your present reality. If you're analyzing spreadsheets right now, trying to determine if you can step away, drop a comment with your thoughts. Are you targeting the traditional threshold or the conservative one? I'm curious where people are landing on this spectrum. And if this helped clarify your thinking around independence planning, share it with your community or discuss it with your partner. We need to move beyond searching for magic formulas and start building genuinely resilient lives. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.